Hello. In this lesson, we're evaluating Solomon Asch's conformity research. So that's understanding the strengths, weaknesses, and issues related to the research. I suggest you have the notes outline in front of you while the video plays and stop it as necessary to keep up. Remember that handwriting your notes has been proven to aid memory more than typing them. The AQA specification expects you to be able to comment on ecological validity, population validity, temporal validity, ethical issues, and real-world relevance of the study. So let's go through each one of those clearly and simply. First, ecological validity. It could be argued that Asch's study has low ecological validity. The task, comparing line lengths, was artificial and nothing like the situations in which people normally conform. Also, the participants were in a room full of strangers with no group cohesiveness. With no real relationships, the pressure to fit in was weaker than in everyday groups. In real life, we conform in meaningful social situations, choosing fashionable clothing, following group norms, or going along with friends. Because of this, we cannot say for sure that people would behave the same way in real situations. Here's a discussion point. You may wish to pause the video while you talk about it. Do you think people would conform more or less if the group were made up of friends rather than strangers? And why? Closely linked to ecological validity is mundane realism. Mundane realism means how much the task reflects an everyday activity. Asch's task does not reflect anything that people normally do, so it has low mundane realism, and this further reduces the external validity of the findings. External validity, that's being able to generalize beyond the experiment. Then population validity. Asch's participants were all male college students, so the sample can't be generalized to women or older adults and people with different levels of education. And what about cultural bias? Asch's study was carried out in an individualistic culture where people are encouraged to act independently and pursue their own goals. In contrast, collectivist cultures such as those in China and Japan prioritize group harmony, loyalty, and interdependence. And because of this, people in collectivist societies often show higher levels of conformity. Bond and Smith's 1996 cross-cultural meta-analysis supports this, finding that conformity varies across cultures and tends to be higher in collectivist countries. And this suggests that the pattern of conformity still exists, but its strength depends on cultural context. Then temporal validity. Temporal validity refers to whether findings apply across time periods. Perrin and Spencer in 1980 repeated Asch's procedure, but with British engineering students, and they found that only 1 out of 396 in trials showed conformity, and that's very low indeed. This study suggests that Asch's results may not generalize well to later time periods. However, newer research shows that people still conform, just not always at the same levels as in the 1950s. For example, Mori and Arai in 2010 repeated Asch's procedure using modern visual filter technology, and they found clear conformity effects in women, very similar to Asch's original findings. And this shows that majority influence hasn't disappeared in modern settings. Here's something to think about. If conformity is still found today, what does that tell us about human behavior? Then there are ethical issues. Asch's study involved deception. Participants were told that the other people were genuine participants, but they were actually Confederates following instructions. The participants were also misled about the true purpose of the study. However, psychological harm was mild. Some participants may have felt stressed or embarrassed, but no long-term harm was reported. So, although deception was necessary to study conformity, it still raises ethical concerns. Now, let's look at real-world relevance. You may wonder, if the study is so artificial, does it matter? Well, even though Asch's research lacks realism, it still provides important insights into majority influence. It shows how group pressure can make people give answers they know are wrong, and it's been a good foundation for later social influence research. Let's look for a moment at internal validity. Internal validity is the extent to which a study accurately measures the effect of the independent variable on the dependent variable, with all other variables properly controlled. Asch's study also has strengths in terms of internal validity. The experiment uses a highly standardized procedure. Every participant saw the same line judgment task, the same number of trials, and the Confederates gave their responses in a standardized order. And because these variables were tightly controlled, Asch could be confident that differences in behavior were caused by the social pressure from the majority rather than by other factors. And this level of control allows researchers to draw clear cause and effect conclusions about how group pressure influences conformity. If you're watching this as a class, you could pause here and split into groups to discuss one of the group scenarios. In summary, Asch's study is criticized for low ecological population and temporal validity, as well as ethical issues. But it's valued for high control and its clear demonstration of group pressure. Hope you found that valuable.